For the first time in human history, civilizations, cultures, and groups are compelled to relate to one another on a constant and continuous basis. Yet mutual ignorance exacerbated by mutual suspicion and hostility inhibits them from establishing ties that endure and flourish. Dialogue and mutual understandings are the prerequisites for building just and equitable relations between cultures and civilizations. Dialogue of Civilization, DOC, could help strengthen relationships and improve understanding regarding the fundamental principles and practices of various communities. Due to the fact that DOC was fast becoming a much-needed mechanism for discoursing issues that arise from the inevitable encounter between nations, ethnic groups, faith systems, ideologies, worldviews, and cultures, on the 13th of November 1996, the Universiti Malaya Centre for Civilisational Dialogue, UMCCD, was established.
Thank you so much for spending time with us, looking through the video. We celebrated our 25 years of establishment last December. So that video is specially put together to just give a brief overview for those of us who may not be familiar with the center. And as you would have seen in the video, Professor Datuk Osman Bakar was the founding father of the center 25 years ago. So congratulations to him once again. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Yang berbahagia Emeritus Professor Datuk Osman Bakar, Al-Ghazali Chair of Islamic Thought, International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization or ISTAC, International Islamic University Malaysia, Honorable Dr. Iyad Abumoghli, Director of the United Nations Environment Programme or UNEP, Faith for Earth Initiative. Yang berbahagia Tan Sri Professor Dr. Jemilah Mahmood, Professor and Executive Director, Sunway Centre for Planetary Health, Sunway University Malaysia. Respected guests, ladies and gentlemen in Malaysia and in other countries, Assalamualaikum and a very, very good morning if you are in Nairobi, like Dr. Iyad. And a very good afternoon if you are in Malaysia and close by. On behalf of the University of Malaya Centre for Civilisational Dialogue, it is indeed our honour and great privilege to welcome all of you to our event today. We thank you for your support and attendance to our very special lecture and launching of the book recently republished by our special guest today, Professor Emeritus Dr. Osman Bakar, which is entitled Environmental Wisdom for Planet Earth, the Islamic Heritage. As you are aware, since the beginning of its inception 25 years ago, the Centre has been earnestly promoting the ideals and applications of peaceful coexistence amongst groups with differing or even conflicting views and ideologies on many issues locally as well as internationally. Today, in light of the unsustainability crisis arising out of climate change seriously affecting all of us, perhaps it is not too far-fetched to suggest that another kind of peaceful coexistence is very much a planetary imperative, and religion has been empirically shown to have a vital role to play in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, current research is showing that the pivotal roles of religion in issues of climate change and environmental justice hinge primarily on religion's functions in society, its ethical teachings, reach and influence, and ability to inspire adherence to action. In order that we might understand more about this topic, we are most fortunate to have with us today Dr. Iyad, the Director of UNEP Faith for Earth Initiative. And Dr. Iyad has kindly consented to launch Professor Osman's book entitled Environmental Wisdom for Planet Earth, the Islamic Heritage. And in so doing, we also hope that he will share with us some of the highlights of the Faith for Earth Initiative project, which he leads at UNEP as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, we are indeed also very honored that Tan Sri Professor Jemilah Mahmood, Executive Director of the Sunway Centre for Planetary Health, Sunway University, who will also share her thoughts and wide experiences in the context of Professor Osman's book. Thank you, Dr. Iyad and Tan Sri Professor Jemilah for being with us today. Of course, our special thanks also goes to Professor Osman himself for consenting to the launching of his book today. So without further ado, I will now invite Dr. Iyad to deliver his speech. But before that, let me introduce him to all of you very briefly. Dr. Iyad Abumoghli is the Director of the United Nations Environment Programme, Faith for Earth Initiative, as we've mentioned before. He leads the regional team of UNEP West Asia in identifying and assessing relevant needs, priorities, trends, developments, and policies at the national, sub-regional, and regional levels in order to incorporate them into UNEP policy and program development goals. He identifies and strengthens strategic partnerships with governments, the private sector, and civil society at large to mobilize support for sound environmental action. Dr. Abumoghli has senior level expertise in sustainable development, environment, innovation, and knowledge management. He has 27 years of experience with the private sector, scientific and international organizations on sustainable development, water resources management, and environmental impact assessment. Before joining UNEP, he served 14 years in UNDP in a number of positions in Jordan and in New York, for example. He has also worked as a senior policy advisor on environment and as a knowledge management team leader and head of innovation units at the Regional Centre in Cairo. Having served in a diverse development domains, Dr. Iyad adopts a very holistic multi-sectoral approach to development, ensuring cross-thematic integration with internal and external partners. Dr. Iyad holds a doctorate degree in biochemical engineering from the University of Bath in the United Kingdom and a BA in chemical engineering from the University of Jordan. Dr. Iyad, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Azizan. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm delighted and honored to be with you today for the launch of the second edition of the Environmental Wisdom for Planet Earth, the Islamic Heritage, book by Professor Dr. Osman Bakar. My pleasure is deepened at this moment as UNEP's Faith for Earth is working with eminent Islamic scholars to launch Al-Mizan, Covenant for the Earth, which addresses Islamic perspectives on the complex environmental and developmental issues we are facing today. Al-Mizan makes the case for an intensified role for all Muslims to take an active part in protecting our only earth, based on the Holy Quran, the sayings and practices of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the Islamic tradition in general. I'm also grateful to Professor Omar Barakat for adding a new chapter to the book on the Quranic idea of Earth as our only planetary home. This is an amazing and important contribution to bringing Muslims in the forefront of addressing our triple planetary crisis of climate change, nature degradation, and pollution. I'm also grateful to Dr. Azizan Baharuddin, Director of Universiti Malaya Center for Civilisational Dialogue and Chair of the Sustainability, for extending to me this precious invitation, but also for being part of the global scholars team writing Al-Mizan, Covenant for the Earth, and for also engaging in many initiatives UNEP is organizing. I'm also grateful to see many of my dear friends, Dr. Jemilah, Dr. Fakhruddin, Kaveh, and many others. This is a delight to be reconnected with you all. Brothers and sisters, the book, as well as everything we Muslims do, starts with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. While Muslims say it dozens of times every day, a deep reflection of its meaning, considering our relationship with Earth and natural resources, gives us a very powerful meaning and guidance to dealing with living and non-living things on the face of Earth. First, God has ordered us to behave in a way similar to His almighty, most beautiful names, Al-Asma al-Husna. Here, two of God's attributes stand powerful guidance for us. How are we being merciful while we abuse God's creation? How are we compassionate if we humans feel and act as superiors over all God's other creations? The most merciful is also the title of Surah Ar-Rahman that talks about the creation and God's wisdom in creating everything in balance. This magnificent Quranic chapter starts by asserting God's attribute of being merciful, then by teaching us the Holy Quran created humans and taught us the speech. Immediately, God talks about how He created everything in balance, including the sun, the moon, the stars, the trees, the skies, and then demands us to not to defraud the scale, al-mizan, and weigh with justice. Then God talks about the fruits, the animals, the seeds, and the benefits to humans and also to the jinn. Is there any more important sustainable development strategy that beautifully encompasses such life elements in a very short and concise manner, like the words of God, subhanallah? Brothers and sisters, we, the international community, have just recently realized that the challenges and multiple crises we are facing today are man-made, what today we call the Anthropocene. However, the Holy Quran mentioned this fact almost 1500 years ago, when God said in his book, corruption has appeared in the land and the sea for what mankind's hands have earned, that he may make them taste some of what should they have done, that possibly they would return. Imagine, subhanallah, God mentioned the land and the sea, knowing that man will abuse what is on land and what is under the ocean. And this is now being reflected in the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs 14 and 15. Brothers and sisters, the book we are launching today clearly mentions that the ecological crisis we are facing today has spiritual and intellectual roots, not only from an Islamic perspective, but also from the perspectives of other religions, as argued in the book by citing Pope Francis' encyclica Laudato Si. We at the Faith for Earth initiative of the United Nations Environment Programme have also repeatedly said that the crisis we are facing today is a crisis of ethics, crisis of values, attitudes, and lack of spiritual connections between humans and nature. We have been working with faith leaders from all religions to make that most prominent in the international intergovernmental arena, hoping that soon the United Nations adopts a resolution manifesting the importance of ethical and spiritual responsibility as important elements in environmental governance. The Environmental Wisdom book says there is still a glaring lack of acceptance of the spiritual dimension of the ecological crisis. The need for an integral environmental philosophy chapter of the book affirms the belief that inter-civilizational dialogue on the ecological and environmental crisis need to be pursued in a more vigorous manner. This is why at the Faith for Earth initiative, working with faith leaders and faith institutions to strengthen interfaith collaboration for protecting our only Earth. And we do that through dialogue and engagement in policy making. We have established working groups addressing climate change, ecosystem degradation, and pollution, and we have submitted the corresponding statements at the highest level to decision makers. The most recent of which was the interfaith statement on COP26 submitted at the Vatican by 40 high-level faith leaders representing 12 religions. Brothers and sisters, I'm delighted that the Environmental Wisdom book addresses many of these issues we are currently working on. One such issue is the relationship between religions and sciences, or the lack thereof. As the book mentioned, the divide between sciences and religions have started decades ago, when more cosmological discoveries have been made and let dispute the convention that Earth, as well as humans, are the center of the universe. This divide, in my opinion, and that of the author, of course, is that it is the lack of understanding of the spiritual relationship between humans and the Earth. Humans were made stewards on Earth with a moral responsibility and spiritual one to protect it. We at Faith for Earth have created a religion science consortium to discuss the mutual understanding between sciences and religions and of the root causes of the ecological crisis, and to agree on common approaches for changing the behavior and attitude of humans towards nature. I'm so delighted that Dr. Azizan is a member of this consortium. The issue of science and religions is further elaborated in the Environmental Wisdom book by reiterating that Islam views the earth as the only home for humans. Humans have caused corruption on earth and leading to its eventual destruction, as opposed to guarding it as per our spiritual and moral obligation to God and to his creations. The Faith for Earth initiative emphasizes the key role faith leaders and faith-inspired institutions have played in protecting the environment and improving health. It is therefore important to utilize the agility of beliefs in the international work on sustainable development. That is why UNEP prioritizes inclusive and transformative green development, which adopts policies and lifestyles that are informed by cultural and religious values. We are establishing a global Faith for Earth coalition that includes a council for eminent faith leaders to bring them together to convey one unified message on our moral and spiritual responsibility towards nature and natural resources. We are also establishing a Faith Youth Council to mobilize the enthusiasm and power of young leaders. Brothers and sisters, the book is an important contribution to the global emphasis of the role of religions, and in particular, the role of Islam in sustaining and protecting the earth, as emphasized in Al-Mizan, Covenant for the Earth. Al-Mizan brings some important Islamic values and principles to the forefront as the responsibility not only of Muslims, but we believe of everyone who lives on this planet. Principles like israf, not to overconsume, and to walk gently on earth. This concept has been recently brought up in connection to food waste and plastic use during Ramadan, with the role of Islamic ethics inspiring careful consumption. The fitra principle, being in a state of harmony and natural state, also speaks to the international motto of living in harmony and in peace with nature. Al-Wasatiyya, moderation, describes that Islam commands good and forbids evil and ensures a balanced way of life. Our Islamic duties, as well as like zakat, for example, as the only Muslim public institution for which Quran explicitly provides with zakat funds potential role in coping with humanitarian crises resulting from climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the last generation that can make a difference on the planet Earth we are living on. Either we leave it in a devastating state and inherit our sons and daughters an unlivable planet, or we correct the course and provide better opportunities for a world where humans and nature can live in harmony together. The 1.8 billion Muslims around the world are all unified by Tawheed of God, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and guided by the Holy Quran and the Prophet's life and legacy, peace be upon him. But certainly, the rest of the humanity believes in the divine that has made this earth a livable planet and has given humans the ways and means to live and nurture. But indeed has at the same time told us that we are only one community of all living communities he has created, and asked us to be his stewards, Khalifa or Khulafa, not in overtaking the sacred lives he has created, but to take the responsibility to keep it the way he has created it. Brothers and sisters, I sincerely congratulate Professor Osman Bakar for his rich and reflective book that I recommend to everyone, Muslims and non-Muslims, to read to understand the spiritual connections between humans and nature, and to understand that we also need unprecedented spiritually and morally driven attitudes to tackle the unprecedented socio-economic and ecological challenges. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Iyad, for that wonderful and inspiring sharing. There were many points there that I think the center especially take up. You especially mentioned the fact that science and religious knowledge, scientific and religious knowledge, needs to be harmonized, because I think without the scientific background to the metaphysical ideas that the theological dimension is teaching us, maybe for the younger generation, it will be not so easy for them to take up all the values that you've spoken very eloquently about just now. And we look forward very much to the Science and Religion Consortium, partly, and also we also look forward to the further developments of the Faith for Earth work that UNEP is doing at the moment under your current leadership. And as we have understood earlier on, Tan Sri Jemilah herself, inshallah, will be at COP27. And perhaps after this, Professor Osman Bakar, you'll be, inspired to do a sequel to your book that we are launching today, inshallah. But I think also we need to do something about our curricula, Islamic studies or religious studies. We need to have some of these elements that you've spoken about highlighted. Yeah? And also in the environmental science curricula, we also need to put in these so-called spiritual elements, and we need to speak about spirituality in a demystified manner. When people mention spirituality, they usually run away. I mean, some people run away. They're so scared, because they can't sort of explain it to themselves in the usual materialistic way. So I think the Science and Religion Consortium has something very important to do. Thank you very much, Dr. Iyad. We're not sure whether you have to leave us after this, but in case you don't have to be in a hurry, please stay on. Thank you very much for gracing our event today. And we hope we will have further collaborations with your office, with Al-Mizan efforts, and I think again, please keep us in mind in whatever further work that you think we might assist you with in the future. Thank you, Dr. Iyad. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, now let me introduce you to a figure who needs no introduction in Malaysia, like us. I'm sure each one of you are in awe of this lady whose work has truly impacted the planet, I would say. She has been to many parts of the world, and certainly her reach is truly planetary. Yeah? So she is Tan Sri Professor Dr. Jemilah Mahmood. She's a medical professional with more than 2 decades of experience managing crisis in health, disasters, and complex settings. She is currently Professor Director of the newly established Sunway Centre for Planetary Health in Malaysia. She's also the Pro-Chancellor of the Harriet Ward University, Malaysia. She has been the Special Advisor to the Prime Minister of Malaysia on public health from April 2020 to September 2021. She was also a member of the government of Malaysia's Economic Action Council, and currently she's on the Malaysian Climate Action Council and Consultative Council for Foreign Policy. Her previous appointments include being the Under Secretary General for Partnerships at International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, IFRC, Chief of the World Humanitarian Summit Secretariat at the United Nations, and Chief of the Humanitarian Response Branch at UNFPA. She is a founder of Mercy Malaysia, a southern-based international humanitarian organization. Professor Jemilah is currently on the board of the Employees Provident Fund of Malaysia and Alam Foundation in Malaysia, and is the first independent chair of Oxfam International. In 2020, she was appointed a senior fellow of the Adrian H. Rockefeller Foundation Resilience Center. She is the recipient of numerous national and international awards for her work, including the Merdeka Award, ISA Humanitarian Award, Gandhi Ikeda Luther King Award, for her contributions to peace, community development, and humanitarian work. So Professor Jemilah graduated as a Doctor of Medicine. She has a master's in obstetrics and gynecology and is a fellow of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, United Kingdom. She also completed her executive education at the International Management and Development Center, IMD, Lausanne. I hope I pronounced everything correctly. So I think many people have heard of Professor Jemilah, Tan Sri Jemilah in Malaysia, but I think reading out her biodata, just as we were reading out the biodata of Dr. Iyad, the reason is that we want to know more about your work, you know, and I think this is the main purpose of reading out elaborate biodata and curriculum vitae. So without further ado, Tan Sri, the floor is yours. Please, Tan Sri.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Azizan, for that very warm welcome. And I'm thrilled to be here. Really, I'm so honored to be invited. It's something that I've been looking forward to. For many years as a practicing Muslim, I have found a lot of my wisdom came from the teachings in Islam. But I also see similar teachings in Christianity, in Buddhism, in Taoism, Hinduism, especially around the protection of our environment and the kindness that we need to have for each other in humanity. So it just is really wonderful to see Professor Dr. Osman Bakar's book with a fantastic title, I must say, Environmental Wisdom for Planet Earth. As I was preparing for this, I was thinking, how do I add value to this discussion today, especially after Iyad's wonderful intervention? I think I would like to take the audience through the realities we are facing and why, whatever faith we have, if we reflect, everything that we do is going to come back to us, and that it will manifest in very different challenges, but I also see huge opportunities. So I would like to hopefully share with you some concrete examples on how we can take this forward. So I'm going to use a couple of slides to help this make it a bit more interesting. Excuse me while I am a real native, not a technocrat here, so I'm going to try and share these slides right now. Here we go. How do I put it on a... Are you able to see my slides?
See the slides, Tan Sri.
You do, yeah? Very good. Okay. Oops, hang on a minute. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Give me 1 second. Kadi is coming to rescue me now. Here we go. All right. So last year, when we were starting our Planetary Health Center, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, a group of friends, very young friends, I must say, came together and approached me and said, shall we just write a commentary on Islam and planetary health in the Lancet? And we did that in June, especially because we were preparing for COP26. And what we were trying to put forward is that the Quran teaches us about the attainment of harmony between humanity and ecosystems as an integral component of one's faith in God, or Tawheed. And the teachings emphasize the role of humans as stewards of the planet, the Khalifa, an ethical, moral obligation to preserve and restore the environment. And this is very much in line with planetary health ethics. Planetary health involves around the continual act of attunement to our bodies, the environment, the cultures we exist within, other inhabitants of the earth and Earth's complete biosphere. So human actions should aim to inflict no harm on the planet. As a health practitioner, we take an oath of do no harm. And I think the same oath or pledge must be made towards do no harm to our planet and our environment. So Planetary Health will consider each human generation to be the custodians, not the masters of Earth, and that we must leave the planet, as Iyad said, in a healthy state for future generations, and they have equal rights to live on a healthy planet. So let me introduce to you why planetary health matters. When we talk about planetary health, we start with talking about something called planetary health, planetary boundaries. Just as in our faith, in our life, we need to have boundaries. Our planet has boundaries too. And the Stockholm Resilience Centre came up with 9 indicators on where we can measure, or some indicators we're still trying to measure, the safe limits for humanity to thrive and survive. If you look at these 2 circular images, the one on the left is really from Donut Economics, really talking about if we are going to have a safe, sustainable, regenerative economy, it must be beyond GDP. It must take into consideration ecological ceilings, but also very important basic social foundations that are required for humanity to thrive. On the right are the 9 indicators that I mentioned in terms of planetary health boundaries, which we must not try to exceed. So if we look at the situation the world is in today, we have exceeded already so many of our planetary health boundaries. As you can see, the ones in orange and dark orange are the areas that we have already exceeded. And this is very worrying to exceed so many in 2022. But if we dive deeper, let's see how we're doing as far as nations are concerned. And this is data from 2018. If you look at this chart, I've tried to put 3 ASEAN countries against each other to compare. And you will see that it is very alarming that Malaysia has really transgressed many of its planetary boundaries. And this is 2018. So you can imagine that it might actually be much worse right now. In comparison, Indonesia has not transgressed many of its boundaries, but if you look at the social foundations, it has some work to do to have equality, to have education improve, and so on and so forth. So those areas in red are things you worry about. And if you look on the extreme left, Vietnam is doing quite well as far as its planetary boundaries are concerned, but again, the social foundation. So our development has actually come at the cost of our environment and the safety and health of our planet. So how do we now find a way to have both the social foundation strengthened, but also protecting our planetary boundaries? Again, putting Malaysia in comparison with USA, you will see that we are really not doing very, very well, almost as bad as USA. And again, in comparison to Vietnam, we're doing much worse. So this should be cause for alarm. And I think everybody in this call must be aware of this. And it is not just pointing to the government to say, let's reduce, or why aren't you reducing this? Because all this adds up because of your and my behavior as well. Now, damaging the planet damages human health. As a doctor myself, I am trained to treat human beings, but I realize that I cannot be a real good doctor if I don't realize the determinants of health. And the determinants of health are only 20% in the healthcare complex, so to speak. 80% of our health comes from our environment, our social and behavioral aspects. And therefore, if we want to have the highest attainment of human health, we need to also take into consideration environment, behavior, social factors, and so on and so forth. And this is why planetary health has emerged as a very important discipline, a way of working, a way of thinking, an approach, a very different way of trying to solve the problems that we have today. And you can see that the impact of damaging the planet is on human health, either through climate change impacts, biodiversity loss, undernutrition, water use, or soil degradation. Right now in Malaysia, we have more than, I think it's close to 14,000 cases of COVID today, with the Omicron virus raging through the country and in fact around the world. But it's an important time to step back and really reflect, how did we get here in the first place? In the first place, we have damaged the environment, we have allowed animals, viruses with and the vectors to be able to transmit from animal to animal. So the viruses are in the wild, they go into certain animals like the bats or the monkeys, and then they go through vectors and then they infect animals, and then animals are consumed to humans, and then there's amplification because of the globalized nature of our world today. So in effect, there is a very strong correlation. If you don't protect the planet, you're going to unleash more and more of these viruses. Scientists have already discovered there are thousands of viruses now being exposed under the glaciers, and this is really quite, it's like a horror movie, isn't it? It's like one of those movies you watch on television or in Hollywood blockbusters, but in reality it's happening today. And the planet's health is essential to prevent infectious disease, whether it's Zika, Ebola, COVID, or the next virus. And I must say, and not to paint a doom and gloom picture, COVID is not the worst. The worst is yet to come. And there are already people now, including myself, working on thinking through what is called Disease X, which is going to hit us in no time. Now, even in a country like China, there are already measures taken place pushing to end wildlife markets as WHO declares coronavirus emergency. So there's an awareness now, on a political level that, you have to change the way you behave, you have to change the way you trade, the way you develop your economies. And I think that this is a very powerful image on why it's so important to really change the behaviors, especially those who consume animals. In Malaysia, I was so delighted to learn about the situation in Terengganu, and it's actually one that also mirrors Indonesia. And this was highlighted in National Geographic a number of years ago because of environmental degradation and poaching. The Terengganu Muslim Council issued a fatwa against poaching. What I'm trying to say here, it is possible for religious bodies to actually get their act together and look at the environment, the wildlife as as us being stewards and Khalifa of the earth, to be able to protect all of these other beings that are among us. And I think this is something that is really encouraging. And my wish is that all states, Muslim councils can get together and really look at protection of the environment, wildlife habitats, and so on and so forth. Now, while we are talking about the damage that the environment, that has happened to the environment and the viruses that have been unleashed, let's also take a step back in what has been the impact of the pandemic on the environment. Some of you may recall that during the MCO, the skies became blue and we could see, the clouds and the blue skies, and we could hear the birds, and wildlife and habitat were having a good time. There was reduced carbon emissions, there was a reduced use of energy, there was less trash on the streets. We could do it when we were under a lockdown, but our habits die hard, right? And it will, the minute we are given the liberties, we completely go the wrong way. And I think this is something that we need to learn from, that it is possible if we attune our behaviors and think about, the environment around us, it will really help us as well. Now, why is this so important? Well, we live in Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific is known as the supermarket of disasters, if not the 7-Eleven. We are prone to cyclones, typhoons, climate crisis is already upon us. We're seeing a lot of the impacts of climate change in this region. And we are no stranger to this as well. Some of you, I hope, were not affected, but if you have my sympathies, and I hope that, you know, we will be protected in future. But we have all witnessed to some extent, you know, the damage that has happened to ourselves or our friends, our families as a result of the recent floods. They didn't happen out of the blue. It is really, we are living in a time of Anthropocene. Our behaviors are determining this. The massive logging and land clearance, which is indiscriminate, the throwing of trash. You've seen, I'm sure on social media recently, even tong gas, you know, a gas cylinder was thrown into a drain. You know, how do you expect drains not to be blocked, right? And you know, development happening in flood basins, which shouldn't happen. So I think a lot of these are man-made. There's no such thing as a natural disaster. You have natural hazards, but it's humans that create vulnerabilities. Now, added to this, in many countries of the world, the climate change will stir unimaginable refugee crisis or displacement. Many countries around the world may not exist anymore. If I show you a map of Malaysia in 2050 and 2070, you might see some of your hometowns underwater. These are the predicted seawater level rises that's going to happen around us. But Maldives, parts of Bangladesh, the Pacific Islands are going to disappear. And this is a reality with global warming and sea level rises. And all this is part and parcel of our environmental degradation and failure to protect our planet. So I wanted to maybe summarize what I've said by reminding all of us that environmental change introduces new diseases or exacerbates old ones. It leads to migration. Migration, on the other hand, will lead to environmental change. In Bangladesh, in Cox's Bazar, when refugees from the Rohingya refugees, you know, poor people who had to flee and go to Bangladesh, put in Cox's Bazar, they were chopping down football fields every day of forests to make room for these refugees. So it's a vicious cycle that we're living in, and we need to break this cycle. Now, as someone who's worked on humanitarian issues for many, many years, I borrowed these slides from Médecins Sans Frontières. If you look at the humanitarian hotspots around the world, the countries which are affected by crises, and you look at the climate hotspots, you know, they all overlap, which means that the climate crisis itself, directly related to environmental degradation, is really a great contributor to the humanitarian crisis, even conflicts. So I think this is something to bear in mind. Now, when I talk to Muslims around the world, I'll tell them, I usually show them this, and this is something that, you know, is really painful to watch from 2022 data. 7 out of 10 countries most in need of humanitarian assistance in 2022 are part of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC. You know, as Muslims, it is clear that there is a duty to protect each other. There's a duty to protect our environment. There's a duty to protect humanity, irrespective of race or religion. And yet, here we are in 2022. We have failed to be the caliphs that we are supposed to be. We have failed to show the stewardship and the leadership for humanity around the world. And I think that, you know, this is where, you know, it's so important. A book that is produced or launched today by Professor Osman, you know, is a must read for everyone, because it brings us back to basics. It brings us back to our primal, it should be our primal instinct and our primal duty to protect and to take care of our planet and our environment. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very, very much, Tan Sri. I'm at a loss for words, actually. I think what we should not do is be in a state of denial, right? I know sometimes Some of us may be uncomfortable with quote unquote bad news, but reality is reality. And if we declare Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi ta'ala, our life and death is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then what does that mean? How much have we actually given truth to that declaration? So I just am reminded always that the issue facing us is something that Professor Osman Bakar touched in one of his lectures before this. As a Muslim, you do not only do the amal, the rituals, the ibadah, you also have to have knowledge. Knowledge is critical, and all that you have presented to us, and also Dr. Iyad just now, this is knowledge. And I hope today we will understand that ilm cannot be separated from being a Muslim. Talking to Muslims here, but I'm sure our friends who are non-Muslims would also appreciate that idea. So we have learned so much from your good self and also from Dr. Iyad. What can we say? We wish you all the best for your future planetary work. Yeah. Coming from a medical professional, I think it gives us a different angle because health is very much a personal matter, is it not? If you yourself do not care, then it just shows that, being in the Anthropocene is really something that is so devastating. I mean, we have come, despite the akal and the reason given to us by the Creator, we have failed to see reality and the truth, which is staring at us in the face. So today is not about who's doing better, who's doing worse. Today is not about blaming. Today, I hope, is about realizing what needs to be understood and what needs to be acted upon. So thank you so much, Tan Sri and also Dr. Iyad. And now it is our pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Osman Bakar, author of the book, Environmental Wisdom for Planet Earth, Islamic Heritage, to share with us critical points and messages that should guide us in our thinking and in our efforts to sustain the environment. But first of all, to some of colleagues overseas, perhaps, who may not be familiar with Professor Osman. Professor Osman Bakar holds a doctorate in Islamic philosophy, and he obtained his doctorate from Temple University, Philadelphia, USA. He is currently holder of Al-Ghazali Chair of Epistemology and Civilizational Studies at Renewal at ISTAC-IIUM. He's also Emeritus Professor in Philosophy of Science at University of Malaya. He was formerly Distinguished Professor and Director of Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Center for Islamic Studies, University Brunei Darussalam. Professor Osman was also formerly Malaysia Chair of Islam in South Asia at the Prince Talal Al-Walid Center for Muslim Christian Understanding, Georgetown University, Washington, D.C. And he was Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Research at University of Malaya. Professor Osman is author and editor of 40 books and more than 300 articles on various aspects of Islamic thought and civilization, particularly Islamic science and philosophy, in which he is a leading authority. His most well-known books are Classification of Knowledge in Islam, Tawhid and Science. His latest books are titled Al-Farabi, Life, Works and Significance, Colonialism in the Malay Archipelago, Civilization Encounters. He has been named among the 500 most influential Muslims in the world since 2009. He was made a Dato in 1984 and also by the Sultan of Pahang, who is the king, in the year 2000. And in case some of us do not realize it, especially Dr. Iyad, Professor Osman basically is also a mathematician. So there you are, your Science and Religion Consortium, I think should be inviting him as well. So Dato', without further ado, sorry we've taken such a long trip to arrive at your station, but I think you will agree with us, it has been worth the while, and it was certainly your idea, your very good idea to have Tan Sri, to have Dr. Iyad with us this afternoon. So silakan Dato', the floor is yours. Thank you, Tan Sri.
Thank you, Professor Azizan. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wa mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good afternoon. Thank you very much, Professor Azizan, for kindly inviting me to attend this event. You have organized a wonderful event this afternoon. You have invited dignitaries, this Dr. Iyad Abumoghli, the Director of the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, Faith for Earth Initiative, and also Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri, Dr. Jemilah Mahmood, Professor and Executive Director of the Sunway Centre for Planetary Health, Sunway University. So thank you both, Dr. Iyad and Tan Sri, for attending this program. It is an honor for me to have you here during this launch of my book, and to all distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attending. Well, when I first received the invitation from Professor Azizan that I should give a special lecture for this occasion, I said, there's no need special lecture for me. I will attend. Yes, I would love to attend, but it's not necessary. It's more than enough to have Dr. Iyad and Tan Sri Jemilah to give their speeches, and I consider those speeches as very special already, special lectures, because after listening to both of them, I'm correct. I mean, their speeches are worthy of being considered as special lectures, and they complement each other. It's very nice actually to have a biochemical engineer giving a speech, very inspiring. To me, also very spiritual laden. Listening to him just now, if you don't know the background, I don't think that came from a biochemical engineer, so I was very inspired by the speech, and it is nice to know, Dr. Iyad, that after listening to you, I said to myself, well, he is the director of the United Nations Environment Program. For that program at the United Nations level to be in the hands of such a person with, with very good knowledge, very sense in conformity with the teaching of Islam, that is wonderful. I think he deserves all our support. He deserves our support, and we wish him well in his job. Looking after the basically planetary environmental health. That is, it means a lot. And then listening to Tan Sri Dr. Jemilah is such a wonderful thing to have a medical doctor now, a medical doctor talking about planetary health, and coming from the medical background. I mean, she has all the things that are necessary. I mean, yes, apart from the medical doctor that examines the human body, now she is examining also the planetary body of planet Earth. MashaAllah. So thank you, Tan Sri Jemilah. It's a good combination for the two. So what else should I say, Professor Azizan? You say special lecture. I say, what should I speak? You should just talk about the book. Actually, Dr. Iyad has given a wonderful summary of the book, a very, very good summary. Perhaps I myself couldn't give such a good summary of my book, So thank you, Dr. Iyad. But I did, maybe the time that's allocated to me, I just say a few things. Not just about the book, but also related issues. Issues related arising from the book, because the book does not provide detailed information, detailed arguments. It's basically a kind of a summary, or some of the important things that should be said about our planet. And I choose that topic, the planetary wisdom, or the environmental wisdom for planet Earth. Of course, I know a lot of discourses, a lot of the discussions have been going on in the world in the last few decades on the environment, on ecology, but very, very few came from Muslims, who provide kind of Islamic perspective of the issue. So I thought it is, I would like to contribute my little bit to the discourse. So nearly 15 years ago, I came with that. The first, the original edition of the book, only 2 chapters for that edition. And of course, in the last 15 years, since the book, during the time, a lot of things happen. Many people feel that the environmental health, because the planetary health has not improved, although a lot of awareness has come up, a lot of efforts, both from the governments, from civil societies, NGOs. There's no doubt that the degree of awareness of the need to protect our Earth, that has grown over the years. But somehow, in terms of the damage done and the impact done to the planet, to our planet, has not gone for better. That is what worries us. I think therefore the issue needs to be studied, by different parties. I think that's what I try to do in my book. So if I were to summarize my way, of my book, of course, one of the themes of the book that I had presented is precisely appreciation of nature, of the environment. This is what I want to say a little bit here, because I did not deal with all, in the book, I did not deal with all types of appreciation. So if we reflect on the concept of appreciation of nature, first of all, the simple one, perhaps, is simply the sentimental appreciation. I think the kind of appreciation that has that manifested in the first place, that gains popularity. What I mean by sentimental appreciation is that kind of feeling that we get just to be with nature, to be close to nature. That sentimental feeling. In other words, looking at the nature and the environment as a source of inspiration for us, inspiration for artists, for poets, in other words, the kind of happiness, feeling at ease, as when we go to undiluted or unguarded beaches and forests, that feeling. So I think it is not for nothing that Shintoism, the original religion of the Japanese, is called the religion of the forest. The religion of the forest, in other words, there are tribes in the world for whom the forest, the jungles with which they are sheltered, is a kind of a source of, it's basically, essentially their religion. I mean, that is the word of the religion. So I think that is a very important thing. So that had been in the 70s, for example. I remember very well at the time, new organizations, new societies related to environment, the friends of the earth, and so on, yeah, the friends of the environment, all that. So that came out of a kind of sentimental appreciation of nature. Now, the second kind of appreciation is the scientific one, scientific appreciation. Scientists are different kinds of people, and what I mean by scientists here, includes medical scientists, health scientists. So their commitment to nature, their sense of appreciation of nature, they feel that through their knowledge, they become close to nature. And nature is something that is worth defending. And today, of course, I mean, their contribution, of course, is they are telling us how our Earth, our planet Earth, is getting on. Is the health all right or not? Or our planetary Earth is having problem? Well, the critics, of course, you say, our Earth is now bleeding from the wounds inflicted by whom the Quran called the people, the corrupt, who cause corruption, which Dr. Iyad mentioned. Corruption has appeared on earth and on seas, all right? A kind of very apt description of what is going on. So now we have the global warming, the climate change, which does not speak well for the condition of planet. So, but the point is, thousands of scientists, through their various fields of specialization, minute specialization, are providing us with information about what is going on, what is the condition of our planetary Earth. In fact, the presentation of Jemilah also provide data related to what I call the scientific appreciation. Yeah. Now, of course, the third one, which is really my field of specialization and my core concern in my book, which is basically the religious appreciation of nature. But religious appreciation can be broken up into parts. I think the core, the heart of religious appreciation is the spiritual appreciation. There's the big difference between the two, because the religious appreciation normally we understand as referring to more external things, but spiritual is more inward, is more fine, is finer, and something that is comes from within, from our heart, basically. So I think that's the most important. What I mean by religious appreciation, for example, in the case of Islamic terminology, Islamic vocabulary, you are referring, of course, to our position as Khalifa. God has created us as vicegerents, as stewards, as custodians, and we Muslims say that precisely because we have been created the Khalifa, it is our duty to protect the earth. All right. So that is that's what I mean by religious appreciation, right? But basically, there's a word here. There's an important concept. Related concept is called respect. All right. Appreciation is not necessarily the same as respect. So one can appreciation, but does not really the respect for nature. But as I understand this word, when talk about religious or spiritual appreciation, then it goes together. It goes hand in hand. It goes together with the idea of respect. Yeah. Just for example, all right, we appreciate nature because it is God-given. It's something God-given. We appreciate that, and therefore that is also related to respect for nature. I think this is. I give you some examples here. All right. First of all, the respect respect for nature as, or appreciation and respect for nature as fellow creatures. We are all creatures. We are all creatures of God. So that is the first level of being, of this respect for nature. Now, how much it is really effective, all right? What is the efficacy of that concept in terms of in what way that idea transforms us, changes us, into a better creature to look after all the other creatures? That's open to question. That's open to question, but conceptually, that's it. I mean, it is. We all acknowledge that human beings and all the other creatures are fellow creatures of the same God, or the same one God, with all the implications that it has for our life. All right. Now, this is important. Nature as a counterpart of a human being. Nature as a counterpart of human being. This concept is very clear in Islam, in the idea of microcosm and macrocosm. Right? Nature, or normally we say, human beings are integral part of nature, and we stop there. But others will say, no, you need to go further by saying that nature is also a part of us. Human beings, the human species, human beings are microcosm. The universe outside us, external to us, microcosm. There is a one-to-one correspondence between microcosm and macrocosm. So I'm using a mathematical relation here, one to one. All right. So in Islamic thought, Islamic civilization, the concept of microcosm is expressed by the word al-alam as-saghir, alam kecil, alam semesta kecil. This the universe in miniature. Right? And the reverse is the converse. The microcosm. I'm sorry. The universe is the macrocosm, which is sometimes expressed by the big man. The universe is the big man. Al-insan al-kabir, insan agung, manusia agung. Now, but the relationship, one-to-one relationship between the two has implications for our planet Earth. Certainly in terms of that inner relationship. So to realize that we are part of the universe and the universe is part of us, that is very, very profound thing. You can make all the necessary conclusions from that. So in a sense, we can understand that at various levels, and therefore can influence the way we look, how human beings look at the world of nature. I think now the other thing is a respect for nature that I discussed in the book, of course, in my book, because I love this kind of topic. There is the Islamic, it comes from the Quran, that the world of nature, or the universe, is a divine book. Now that is a very important concept, very consequential to entertain the idea that nature is actually a divine book like the Quran. Would Muslims destroy the Quran? Will Muslims allow the Quran to be destroyed? Knowing that the world of nature is actually a divine book, the content of which are verses of God or the science of God. It is the book of science of God. Now we are destroying that book. How do we feel? How do we feel about it? I think a lot of Muslims will react if somebody threatens to burn the Quran or to destroy the Quran. I think most Muslims react, against that. But many of them are silent. Many of them don't care. If we continue to destroy the other book, that's why I feel that the concept, that kind of appreciation and respect for the world of nature, understood at that level, it is a profound thing. So my argument is that while we honor the appreciation and respect at the sentimental level, at the scientific level, health level, so why not also in addition? I feel that in terms of the qualitative impact is far greater. Of course, another respect for nature is as a trust from God. So the world of nature is a trust, amanah. And the Quran tells us that precisely because we had been placed on earth as trustees. In fact, we are trusted, and we have to keep the honor, to fulfill that trust, because it's given us as a trust. So if all these ideas presented in the systematic manner, in a frequent way, such as through our systems of education, I think it means a lot. In other words, we'll be creating a mind that is very, very sensitive to our relationship with nature. So that is but in the book, of course, I didn't discuss all this because I concentrate on the idea of the divine book, the trust from God that we have to honor, and part of the meaning of being vicegerent or being Khalifa. The other theme of the book, of course, related to this issue of appreciation and respect, is protection itself. After we appreciate, after we respect, what? Well, the commitment to protect nature, precisely because there's a minority of humankind that do not show, that are not responsible. They are only interested in deriving, in the extracting all the resources of our planet Earth, and then without, in a sense, being responsible. Professor Syed Hussain Nasr, he used a very, very harsh word, a very strong word when he wanted to describe this in his celebrated book, Man and Nature. So by calling these people who cause corruption on Earth, who destroy the Earth, who extracts all the source kinds of material benefits from the world of nature, as treating the Earth as prostitute, These people only want enjoyment from the external world of nature, from Mother Nature. Now, but they treat her as a prostitute. That's very, 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 very strong word, but then there's a bit of truth in that. So the protection of nature, I think this is the issue for our time. There must be better laws. There must be firmer laws. There must be, in a sense, laws that are really enforced in order to protect nature. precisely because of the misdeeds of this. It's not enough to appeal anymore. Appeal to criticize does not work. All right. Now, for the religious scholars, this is my message to that, for religious scholars. I mean, those, especially of the Sharia, who talk about God's laws, who talk about hudud, all right? If you know, I mean, there is another area in which, in fact, that really matters as far as the idea of hudud is concerned. Because what does the hudud mean? Hudud is a plural of had. Had means limit. Plural is hudud. So what they understand is only hudud, limits in society, all right, in the social world. But if we understand the Quran, if we understand philosophy of science, philosophy of nature, all things in nature are subject to hudud, subject to laws. There's another Sharia in Islam, Islamic thought. There's another Sharia other than the Sharia that dealing with the human world. That Sharia is the divine law that governs the relationship of all things in the natural world, all subject to laws. Yeah. So the idea that we must observe the hududs in the world of nature, but humanity now, many human beings now are not observing. So there is a ecological relationship. So this ecological relationship will tell us what are the limits that are permissible. If beyond that limit, you bring about all kinds of natural consequences, catastrophe happening, the wild frequent floods and so on, because of deforestation. In other words, it's not that we cannot use things from the world of nature. After all, God has created nature for our use. But we should observe the wasatiyah thing. In other words, the Quran reminds again and again, do not exceed your limits. Do not exceed your limits. Do not transgress. Yeah, that is very important thing. Now, yeah, so protection of nature, I feel that the time has come for all human societies, you know, to, well, not only to have good laws in place, but more important is to enforce the law, because the alternative is very bad consequences for all of us. Yeah. Now, as far as this theme of the book, I think another one, of course, another important thing, which I treat in chapter 1 of the book, basically, the whole of chapter 1 and concentrates on this, the Islamic ecological themes, the wisdom, what I call, what is precisely the title of the book, environmental wisdom in the Quran, and I provide several important themes. I call them ecological principles, which I plan already. I really wanted the ecological studies in the colleges and universities to pay attention to this, especially from the Islamic perspective. So I just mentioned here, I cannot go into detail because of short time. What are the Islamic ecological themes that I emphasize in chapter 1? First, the centrality of environmental and ecological consciousness in Islam. Why it is central? It is why is ecological consciousness central to Islamic thought? It's because the ecology is what I call applied tawhid. All right, we have a theoretical tawhid, which talks about the unity of God, unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is an important concept in Islamic science, of which ecology was a part, which is unicity of nature. Unicity of nature. to mean that all parts of nature are interrelated, interconnected, interdependent. So these various aspects of relationship between all natural things, called the unity of nature. Where did this concept, where did the Muslim scientists and scholars in the past arrive at this idea? Where did they derive this idea? Well, precisely from the principle of Tawheed, the unity of God. So that's why it is very, very important. And today I would say that the word ecology, if we mean by ecology here, biophysical ecology, let's say biodiversity, for example, what scientists today call biodiversity was this aspect of what classical Muslim scientists and philosophers call the unicity of nature. And from this fundamental concept, we have the idea of ecological balance and equilibrium. Can refer to Surah 55, verses 7 to 9. There you can find the idea of ecological balance and equilibrium. So it's a very, very important concept. And to preserve or to maintain the ecological order in the as should be, this is precisely preserving the ecological balance and equilibrium. Now, the other principle is the Earth. The idea of the Earth as a unique life-supporting planet. There are verses in the Quran. The minute I just refer to, maybe you can refer to Surah 26, verse 7, this to understand this Quranic idea of the Earth as a unique life-supporting planet. It is unique because it is not shared by the other planets. Of course, we don't know because we live in a vast universe. We have many solar systems. The solar systems in the galaxies, we have many galaxies and so on. Of course, that is mentioned in the Quran, but and people have asked, whether there is intelligent life somewhere else in other parts of the universe. Well, we can pose that question, and I can do research by all means, but we know that very well. As far as the knowledge at our disposal is, the Earth is a unique life-supporting planet, and precisely because of that, we will take great care, planetary care, to ensure that we do not disturb that life-supporting system. Now, the other one, of course, the other principle, ecological principle, is the Earth's destiny. The Earth's destiny is linked to man and the rest of the cosmos. That is the message of the Quran. We are not alone on our planet. The whole is not. We are not alone here. All right. But the point is that the future of planetary Earth is not separated. It's not. It's not separated from the destiny of the rest of the universe. And as far as our planet is concerned, the future of our own planet is inseparable from the destiny, our own destiny. So I think that is very important to realize. We are not independent of our Earth. And another one is, of course, another important ecological principle in the Quran is the harmonious relation between living organisms and their environment, what I call the ummatic nature of animal species based on the Quranic verse. The Quran refers to the animal species as ummam, as ummam is plural of So all the animal species are communities like us. Now, so if we reflect carefully, especially we should understand what the concept of ummah is. in the Quran. There are more than 70 times, the word ummah is repeated in the Quran, and they have different meanings in this context. So what is very important as far as ecology is concerned is to know that the insects, the animals on land, the animals in water, fishes in water, birds in the air, they are all communities like us. And that is a profound wisdom that we are only beginning to understand, because modern science only did not pay much attention before. But in Islam, because of that knowledge, actually, we found that for example, subjects like animal psychology, animal behavior, what lessons can be learned from other species, what can other species teach us human beings. So that was not at all, a strange question, in a sense, because there was much closer interaction between human beings and the rest of the animal species. Unlike in the West, precisely because of the evolutionary perspective that things have evolved, different species have evolved from lower species, so a different kind of appreciation of the world of nature. All right, then the last one that I treated in the chapter 1 of the book, the concept of divine economy in nature, zero waste. This is very, very important concept for us. Yeah? Islamic science taught the idea that everything was useful. Everything God created was useful. Bilhaq, in truth. Again, it was evolutionary biology that talk about somehow, because of evolution, some of the organs of insects and other things were redundant somehow, because those organs were not fully developed. So when they evolved, they have developed. But that was a strange idea as far as the classical Islam science is concerned, because they said that everything that God created that for a purpose. It's redundant. So there was no waste in nature. That our field, the economic field, our economic science, should also learn from this principle, because human being can learn something from divine economy. So I think that the principles that I talk about in chapter 1 with regard to the Islamic ecological principles. Maybe perhaps a few minutes more, Prof. Azizan.
No problem, Prof. No problem.
Yeah. Now, the third chapter which I added to the first edition, because I wanted to emphasize the importance of the idea that the Quran has talked about basically the earth as our only planetary home, which can refer to Surah Al-Baqarah, in the Surah 2, verse 36, when that verse that God will, Allah Ta'ala has placed human beings on the earth, and to become our home, to become our dwelling place, mustaqar. This is mustaqar. And then for the time being, ilahi. In other words, it is temporary. So our planet Earth is a temporary home, and the only one. But being temporary home does not mean that we can't use it at will. In other words, we don't take care of that. In fact, it is. In fact, to me, it is very, very interesting to observe that in the history of the world, in past civilization, people believe in God. People believe in the last day. People realize that their life on planet Earth is only temporary. So while believing that the Earth is a planet, is a temporary planetary home, but they took care of that. But the paradox is that those who think otherwise, those who do not believe that the Earth will somehow be, will meet its end and because of that they can do anything. Yeah, they don't care. I mean, they don't take precautions. They don't make attempts to really protect the Earth. So that's why I emphasize there. Actually, much more can be said. I hope somebody, the younger academic students, scholars will examine other verses related to that in the Quran. But I just select certain things. For example, how beautiful our home, planet Earth, has been, and how luxurious it has been. So if we study carefully, in other words, God has created Earth as a carpet, right? As a kind of a carpet, beautiful carpet, and God has created the heavens as sama, both in terms of singular and plural, has various levels of the sky to serve as very secure roof for us. The Tan Sri Jemilah mentioned regarding the protection. You are protected from the various kinds of sources of diseases from outer space, especially from the sunlight, light from the sun. But actually, God has created layers, protective layers, basically to protect us here on Earth. And then in my book, I use the imagery of the home in terms of water supply, wonderful water supply, in terms of the heat supply, but now being interrupted. The heater is getting hot now because of global warming. So the symbolism of architecture, the symbolism of the home used in the Quran to emphasize how wonderful our home is, our planetary home is. And yet we have people trying to damage that. So lastly, my last point here, especially in chapter 2 of the book, it is very important that human beings conduct interfaith, intercultural dialogue on ecology and environment. In other words, if the issue of our common safety on Earth cannot bring us together, then I don't know what can. What can? Yeah, so it is important. We who belong to different branches of humanity, different religions, different ethnic groups, we have one common interest. There is being occupants in the same one house. We all live under one roof. And therefore, we need to meet, to talk, and discuss how best we together can preserve our beautiful home. And of course, I'm worried. Of late, we had news that multi-billionaires want to set up colonies in other planets after getting billions of wealth from our planet. Then they want to go somewhere else. We don't know what this will mean. So maybe that is for United Nations, for Dr. Iyad to see whether these people who leave our planetary Earth and set up somewhere, whether they should be welcome back on Earth. I think it is maybe now it's just a kind of chit chat to talk, but we don't know what the future will be. But as far as we are concerned, planetary Earth is our only planetary home. Make the best of it. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Prof. Thank you so much for that wonderful sharing. I think the last session with you is absolutely necessary because the elaborations, like you said, you cannot put everything in the book, right? But your sharing, especially with regards to the tadabbur, trying to understand the Quranic verses in light of the environment is something that is very critical for us to understand.
So, what is going on?
Prof. I'm sorry, I lost you for a few minutes there. Are we okay now? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, what is it now?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the book, the special take-home message, especially when you were talking about doing the tadabbur on the Quranic verses. I think that's for Muslims, that's absolutely critical. You talked about the layers, the protective layers in the atmosphere being mentioned in the Quran. There were many things that you, other species being communities like us, these are all directly from the Quran. And I can, I think we need to speak to the young people especially, and we need to take them to weekend camping trips into nature.
Agree.
Yeah, I think nature has to be experienced. The problem with today is that we are living apart from nature. We forgot that we are part of nature. Like Transri Jemilah says, when you speak about health, then you understand how nature is inside you and you are inside nature, and you touched upon the concept of unity. So I just hope that our friends and colleagues who are with us from Malaysia, Indonesia, I know there are colleagues from other countries who are working with UNEP on their Al-Mizan project. Which tries to complement Dato C. We wish them all the best. So now, Prof, if you will indulge us a little bit more, we would like our friends to ask questions if they want to, have further clarifications from your good self. So we open the floor to everyone. You may ask Dato Osman directly if you just mention your name. Or you could, in the chat box, write your questions. Prof, while waiting, I just want to ask, the problem today is that we have a dominant worldview that says that we are, that deny all the things that, the religious view is saying. That firstly, nature is created. Secondly, nature is a trust. Thirdly, we are guardians of nature. Fourthly, nature is actually the second book from the creator itself. The dominant worldview is totally opposite in the sense that we have evolved from something that was not known, from very, by accidents. We evolved from very minuscule living things, right? And now we do not know what our outcome will be. And like you spoke about this in one of your lectures. At best, the evolutionists are saying that we should now plan our future evolution, right? So how do we actually navigate these differences in terms of worldview? The businessman you spoke about who has amassed billions of wealth, billions of dollars of wealth, who is very happily going to go to other planets. The way you put it, he has taken so much from this earth. Now, just to use that wealth to go to another planet, which is like 1 in a million kind of chance, of finding solutions. So could you just add to that kind of commentary or comment?
Yes, okay. Thank you, Prof. Azan. I think there's not just one answer to that problem. Perhaps in terms of effectiveness, the best would be a partnership between people of religion and people of science, or religionists and scientists. If we can increase the voice, the number of voices which affirm the same view of religion and science. In other words, if the findings of scientists in their study of ecology, in terms of the environment, can be supported, can be affirmed by the religious perspective, for example, from scripture, from the Quran, that will be the best. It sends a strong message to many people that science and religion are one, are united in their narrative. They provide a common narrative of the situation prevailing, affecting our planet. That's why I think, let's say from the Islamic perspective, it is important for those who know about religion, discuss this with fellow scientists who provide their data, their input. So this kind of narrative needs to be multiplied. To be, in other words, that voice has to become louder. I think that's the best. But as far as those presenting the religious perspective can very well continue by themselves, but try to present their understanding of the problem. For example, the ideas presented in the Quran, presented in contemporary language that can be understood by the younger generation especially. Then we trust that the human mind, those who are sincere, those who are honest, we come to realize that what these people of religion talking about makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. We cannot expect everybody to welcome that. Some people, as you said, just by mentioning the word religion, religious terminology, using religious terminology, they already put off. All right? But we believe that there is a very sizable audience out there who are eager to know what does religion have got to say about the issues that scientists are now trying to solve. Yeah. So the challenge is very big. It also showed to us that the ecological issues, environmental issues, are going to be with us for a long time to come. Yeah, because the issues are numerous. This is not the kind of one day having seminar and then we can forget it. No, this is a perennial issue that means so much to everyone, especially because, as if we are all living in the same house, one single house. We cannot afford to have some occupants of the home being naughty or not doing damage. I think that's my response to that. So as far as certainly for myself, I would like to see more discourses between religion and science on the issue of planetary health, on the idea of this ecological health. Yeah. And then widen that concept of ecology, don't limit that to biophysical ecology, but go to human ecology. In fact, go to what Pope Francis said as integral ecology. Now, from the perspective of Islam, we can support that. We can agree more. We was presented by Pope Francis about integral ecology, which in some of my writings I refer to this as Tawhidic ecology. In other words, the question here, how to have a very holistic concept in which biophysical ecology, the human ecology, the cultural ecology, including the built environment. What kind of built environment would be conducive to that holistic ecology? So yeah, there's so many issues that is here. You can imagine, no? Even now we are moving to that concept of integral ecology, in which what happens in one part of our reality will affect the rest. What happens in our human society will affect our environment. What happens in the environment will affect our human ecology. So we are interdependent. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Professor Fakarudin Mangujaya. We can see you. Would you say something?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Silently coming from Bogor. Thank
Bogor,
you.
mashallah, Bogor. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Datuk Osman Bakar. I read your books. I have the first version of the books. I get the from again. Datuk and all the friends in Malaysia, we are enlightened today with the thinking and the thoughts of Professor Osman Bakar. We are rarely have this kind of books. I would like to recommend all the scholars and spread the nature of information that we should send. Like Iyad said, that we need to be more massive for this kind of information. We cannot wait. We disseminate the ideas, the wisdom is there, but the one thing we should concern that we should also bridging this knowledge to our ustads. That's what we're doing in Indonesia. We have clerics at the grassroots level, which is they are in front line of giving the forest, giving the environmental by daily life to see the nature, and they are advisors of the lay people actually. How do you see this important, Datuk, and how then Malaysia can also make more meaningful implementation of your ideas? Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Fakarudin. Well, this is one good example where the example of a field, an area of concern, where we in the Nusantara can work together, To me, education is a very important platform for us. I think those who have already studied, who have looked critically at the kind of curriculum that we have on the environment, on ecology, this needs to be updated as well as to be synchronized and to be integrated, basically. What we need is an integrated curriculum on the environment, in which the religious and spiritual dimension it is integrated with the scientific, with the social, it's something like what I talked earlier about the different kinds of appreciation. So, for example, when we talk about, say, the subject of appreciation of nature, so by bringing all those, the sentimental, the scientific, medical, the health, the religious, and the spiritual appreciation. So a holistic, integrated conception of appreciation of nature, respect for nature. You don't have separate treatments. Don't separate from the religious and non-religious. We need, after all, what we call Tawhidic. The Tawhidic perspective is one in which we look an issue from different angles and then synthesize that. This is what our current education needs. The kind of what if we look at our contemporary education, that is lacking. That's systematic. What we have has many shortcomings. Has many negative things. It is not up to the standard, to the quality that we need. That takes care of all these discourses on the subject in the past. Yeah, things are moving very fast. Things are moving very fast. The problems affecting our human being that comes from this environmental problem is very, very fast. So that's my response. I think we need to have more context, more create more discussion groups, right? Create more events. You see, both at the level of ideas and at the level of action-oriented thing. It's not a question of one or the other. Both. We need to address this problem at the level of ideas, all right? So that we understand the situation better, and of course we also to act through all kinds of activities, such as we do through NGOs, through civil society groups. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other colleagues? Yuner, Lilis, Sulis, Yorini, would you like to say something? Sister, no. Anyone?
No, thank
else?
you.
Yeah. Silakan, Bu.
Terima kasih. Saya belum ada saran. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
One raising hand, Mogamat Ridwan.
yeah. Silakan. Yeah. Prof. Osman, as we all know, Prof. Bakharuddin, he works with the pesantren. They have green pesantren in Indonesia. They've done marvelous work like replanting. There's one example where there was no water, and then after the tree planting, they had water in their wells. So these are incredible examples that I think should be replicated. And I think we in Malaysia have a lot to learn from the experiences of our colleagues there in Indonesia.
Allah.
Yeah, silakan. So any more questions from the floor, please, from our colleagues out there? From Mogamat Ridwan Rilans, would you like to ask something or add something?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Go ahead, brother.
Sheikh Muhammad Ridwan from South Africa, a good friend of the Honorable.
Very happy to have you. Yes. Yes.
Indeed, we thank him very much from the depth of our heart for this enormous, invaluable contributions. And also, he remains an uncut diamond with intrinsic value. Shukran. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Thank you. Perhaps our brothers and sisters out there, you may want to follow us up with your emails, and we can have further discussions on future collaborations in extending or expanding this conversation, if you like. I think like Prof. Osman says, 1 or 2 seminars will not do it. We have to replicate. We have to make our voices heard by many more. Like Tan Sri Jemilah showed to us, the fate of ISC countries are not very good in terms of threats that the planet Earth is experiencing at the moment. And I think everything is due to the fact that we are suffering from the lack of knowledge and understanding vis-a-vis the environment. So I just hope our friends who are in religious schools, who are in the religious curricular sector, will give space for ourselves and other people who may not be Muslims to understand how critical and how close this issue of the environment is to us. I think the notion of the Anthropocene, Prof. Osman, that in itself is a strange notion to a lot of people. What does it mean? It means we human beings are actually starting a new age, which is not a good one for the planet. And it was said in not once, several times just now. If we don't do something, you know, we are literally bringing ourselves to the brink of destruction. So anyway, I think we thank Professor Osman Bakar very much for all the energy and time he has put into our discussions today, and we really appreciate everyone who has joined us in this program today, and we certainly hope that we will have future collaborations with many more amongst yourselves and in your various institutions. Just let us know if you are interested to work with us. So with that, thank you so much, and we thank the mighty Creator Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala for allowing us this opportunity to speak about His creation, to speak about Him. Inshallah, Awaluddin Ma'rifatullah. You know, we need to know Allah, and I think that's part of the problem. And some people don't realize that looking at His signs is the best possible way to know Him. So with that, we end the program today, Professor Osman. We'd like very much for our colleague, Mr. Chang Li Wei, to ask everyone to switch on their cameras. We would like to record our presence today. If you are able to switch on your cameras, we'd like to take a photograph of everyone on the screen. And if for those of you who are interested in the book, we are here to assist you to obtain the book. So I myself will be getting a few copies. Prof. Bakharuddin will be sending it in your direction. So mungkin boleh dikasih-kasih sama kawan-kawan di sana ya. Okay, all right. So please switch on your camera. Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you again.